The following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. We continue our NFL preview when we cover the NFC North. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Football Show. Welcome into an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Football Show, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the promo code STOVE15. That's STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. And friends, we are just rolling right through the NFL preview episodes here on the Sports Stove Football Show. Today, we land on the NFC North. If you've missed the past two episodes, we've already covered the AFC West and the NFC East. And I want to thank everyone who's tuned into those broadcasts. We've had a lot of viewership on those episodes, so we sure appreciate you for that. I'm Vince Stover, joined as I am every week by my dad, Dale Stover. Dad, how you doing?
Doing good, and excited about tonight. It's always fun to talk football. And but we're in the NFC North, so I think we're pretty knowledgeable about all the NFL, but definitely I think when it comes to the division that our Packers are in. So looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Well, I got my hair cut today. My barber is a Bears fan, and so we had some conversations today about fantasy football, about the Bears a little bit. As well. And, it's funny to listen to Bears fans. There's a varied expectation for this season for them, even in their own fan base, which I find intriguing for sure. And we talked a little bit about the Bears on Tuesday night's Belly Up Fantasy Live Football Show as well, as we covered running backs this week. You can go listen to that on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel or the Belly Up Fantasy Live Football podcast as well. Dad, we need to welcome in some viewers and listeners of the show. They're not here, maybe not here live. I don't know if they are or not, but listen regularly. So some shout out to friends in Oklahoma. And then also have been told we have faithful listeners in Alabama. So shout out down there to some guys at Big Oak down there listening in as well. And if I continue to hear that you mock us for mispronouncing names, we will shut you off from the program. So, but no, I'm kidding, of course. Appreciate everyone that tunes in. All right, Dad, we are looking at the NFC North. And, before we get there, we have to say this. Almost another 4th of July tragedy in the NFL. Najee Harris with an eye injury due to fireworks. And, when will people learn? If you have a contract signed in the NFL, just stay away from anything dangerous. Thankfully, it looks like it wasn't anything serious and that he will be ready to go this season. But a close call there for Najee Harris. And all those getting ready to draft Omarion Hampton almost had a little bit more clarity in that pick. But now we will wait to see. So that was crazy. Of course, several years ago now. Pierre Paul blew off a couple fingers. So be careful out there, NFL people. You got a lot of money on the line here. Okay, now to the NFC North. We've got the Chicago Bears is where we're going to start with today. And if each of these teams, we're going to be looking at breakout players, make or break players, depth chart battles, and then we'll look at the win totals and the ceiling and floor for these teams. So, Dad, Chicago's a fun one. They got a brand new coaching staff in this year. We both believe it was the top 2 hire in the head coaching cycle this season. Ben Johnson comes over from Detroit. He brings Declan Doyle in as the OC. Dennis Allen is the defensive coordinator with all kinds of NFL experience, of course, as well. But, Dad, we look at this Bears team, and let's start with a breakout player for the Chicago Bears. Who do you think is the breakout player for Chicago this year?
Well, obviously there could be several, but I think it would be the second-year wide receiver, Roman Odunze.
Yeah, Rome Odunze is a guy that I really like too as well, Dad. He's actually who I had as my breakout player also. Last season, 54 catches, 743 yards, 3 touchdowns. 3rd on the team in yards, targets, and receptions. 4th on the team in receiving touchdowns. And I believe he establishes himself as wide receiver 1 this year for Chicago. So that's why I think he's a breakout player. because I think DJ Moore, although he's good, I think starts to take a back seat. And then, of course, they also brought in Luther Burden in the draft this year, too, with the expectation that Ben Johnson is going to improve things there for the Chicago offense. I've got to believe Roma Doomsday is going to be a big part of that as well. I would assume that's kind of your reasoning as well.
Yes, yeah. I like I said, I liked him, coming out of the draft, and I think he's got potential there to do really, really well. I think he's like you said, the best receiver there. We'll see how their receiving core goes.
Sure.
DJ Moore, I don't know how he'll take that, and
sure.
but I think Adunze, is a very good player, so no doubt about it.
Yeah, and with them stocking up at tight end too, I don't think even if Moore gets mad and doesn't want to play, they still have plenty of pass catchers out there. They brought in Zacchaeus from Washington. They brought in Duvernay from Jacksonville. Boykin signs as well. And, of course, Dad, they've got Samori Toure on the team now, so we know they've got an elite receiver back there at 6th or 7th on the depth chart as well. The other name I'll mention, though, is DeAndre Swift, the running back at 26 years old. He's played with Ben Johnson before and did well with Ben Johnson. Now, we'll see what Ben Johnson does. Does he come in and does it look very similar to Detroit? They had a two-headed monster at running back, and the Bears do not have a two-headed monster at running back. So will Swift be the main guy, and could he have a big breakout season as well is definitely a possibility. All right, let's go to make or break player for Chicago this year. Dad, who do you have for that?
Well, I've got, again, I think the key for them is going to be offensive line. And I've got Darnell Wright, our old guy from Tennessee. He was drafted very, very high, and he's going to have to perform at right. The tackles are going to have to perform. They've went out and got some help on the inside of the line. Of course, when you bring in a lot of guys, to me, continuity, at least for a while, could be an issue with the offensive line, but maybe not. But I think Darnell Wright would be one that's going to have to step up. And Tyreek Stevenson at cornerback, he's someone they need, to make work there. Tremaine Edmonds at linebacker. I think he's coming off an injury maybe, and he needs to. They need him on the defense. And I even had the guy you had as a breakout, DeAndre Swift, on that. Again, they're going to need a running game, and the thinking is he'll be the answer. But so that's the four I had.
Okay. You go back to the offensive line. Darnell Wright, of course, a first-round pick in 2023. The tackles are important. I don't think continuity will be too big of an issue because the three guys they brought in free agency are veterans and played for really good teams in most cases as well. Jonah Jackson on the right side, Joe Thuney on the left side, and Drew Dahlman, the center in the middle there. Then you've got Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright as the carryover tackles. They also drafted Ozzie Trapillo in the second round that could compete for the left tackle job as well. So offensive line is crucial. There's no doubt about that. And I think we'll see. I think Ben Johnson is smart enough to work with what he has to get by at least this season. And then maybe next year will be that official step forward. But I still think they make improvement this year. My make or break player is Cole Kmet. He's now the backup tight end as they bring in Colston Loveland in the first round. Kmet was a second round pick. He's been decent. He's been okay. Last year, 47 catches, 474 yards, and 4 touchdowns, which is down from 73 catches the year before. And actually, last season was his lowest number since his rookie season there in Chicago. But again, new coach who has had success using the tight end position. He's got Colston Loveland there. I think Kmet now this year will play a lot into what he does going forward, because if he can't succeed in Ben Johnson's offense, if he can't get those numbers up in Ben Johnson's offense, even with Loveland in front of him, I think that he's going to find himself as a perennial backup the rest of his career. So I think this is a big year for him, for his career. He needs to have a solid season. The receptions might be low, similar to last season, but he needs to get those touchdowns up. He needs to find a way to make some plays this season. So that's my make or break player for Chicago. Depth chart battles. I focus really on the defensive line. There's two. They play a 4-3. There's two tackle positions there. They've got Dexter, Grady Jarrett, Shamar Turner, and Andrew Billings. Four guys fighting for two spots. And I think Grady Jarrett's pretty well set as one of those spots. So can the rookie Shamar Turner, can Dexter hold out, can Billings, step in, whatever it may be. I think that's really the main battle to watch. And then we mentioned the tackle spots already on the offensive line, Braxton Jones and Ozzie Trapillo to pay attention to as well. Do you have anything different for depth chart battles?
No, I had the left tackle spot on offense and just the running back rotation,
Sure.
what they'll have behind Swift and just, as far as the running back situation.
Yeah, I cannot believe they didn't do more to address the running back spot this offseason. Rashawn Johnson is currently slotted in as the backup. They've got Travis Horner that was in Seattle previously. I think he was in Chicago last year. And then they drafted in the 7th round Kyle Mananga, something like that. Of all the running backs in the draft, they could have taken one way before the 7th round. They did not. And I think that was a massive mistake for Chicago. So I don't like their depth situation at running back, that's for sure. Okay, let's talk about the season now for Chicago. Their win total this year is 8.5, 8.5 games this season. I actually kind of like that number for Chicago, but talk to me about the 8.5 wins and where you see their floor and ceiling.
I'll go under 8.5. Again, looking at their schedule, I just don't. I don't really see that. I do have their ceiling at 9. They could get to 9 wins. I have their floor at 5, and so somewhere between 9 and 5. And I had about 7 wins, so 8.5. Yeah, I don't see them getting to 9. So there's potential. And it's going to come down to another team we're going to talk about here in the division at the end.
Sure.
And see whether they split or one of them, dominates the other one.
Yeah, I had their floor at 6 wins and their ceiling at 10. I don't think they get the 10 this year, but I just looking at their schedule, it's a possibility. If everything goes right for them, then 10 is where they land. I think 8 or 9 is where they end up. I think I'm a little bit higher on them than you are this year. I think the coaching hire was huge, massive. And year one with these offensive coaches tends to go better than year 2. And so you get them in year 1 now, expect them to make a little bit of a run here, and can they sustain it from there on out? Health obviously plays a massive role. If Caleb Williams goes down, they're doomed at quarterback. They got Case Keenum back there and Tyson Baguette. So they don't have depth. That's where they're hurt at, is depth. They don't have depth at running back. They don't have depth at quarterback. They've got some defensive question marks as well as far as depth goes at linebacker. So, I mean, there's injuries could be the doom and the downfall of this team this season. But I think overall, I'm pretty positive on them. I think they improve over last year. 8, 9 wins, somewhere in that range is kind of where I have. And that's why I like the 8.5 number. I think it's pretty much spot on there for Chicago. All right, let's go to Detroit next, and the Detroit Lions, Dad. The biggest offseason change for this Detroit team is what we just talked about with Chicago is the coaches. They lose both coordinators to head coaching jobs, Ben Johnson going to Chicago, and then the DC headed to the Jets. Dan Campbell's still there. Neither you or I is really that big on Dan Campbell as a head coach. We think he is a great motivator. He's done great things in Detroit, but when it comes to X's and O's, I really feel like it was his coordinators that handled things there. And so can John Morton, the new offensive coordinator, Kelvin Shepard, the new defensive coordinator, can they step in? Can they do the job and maintain the winning ways in Detroit? Well, let's start with a breakout player then for the Lions. Dad, I'm intrigued to see who you have for Detroit.
Well, I got 2 guys, both on defense. They played well, but they're in a spot to really step it up, and that would be Jack Campbell, the linebacker, from Iowa, who's done well. And then the safety they got last year, they needed a safety, and they got one in Brian Branch, and he played well. Both those would be players that could really, step up and be leaders and probably need to be on the defense.
Yeah, I was originally thinking Jack Campbell as well. I looked at his stats and thought, well, he may have already had his breakout season last year. I believe led the team in tackles last year. So I like that one for sure. Branch played very, very well, second-round pick in 23. I stay with the defense as well, Dad. I go with Enos Rakestraw as the breakout player for the Lions. Last year, he only played in 8 games. He only had 6 tackles. He had 0 passes deflected, 0 interception. But the Missouri young man comes in very talented. He was second-round pick last season. He has the opportunity to play behind Terry and Arnold or opposite of Terry and Arnold, one of the two. They bring in DJ Reed this year from the Jets. So he won't be asked to do too much this year, which I think could really help him in year 2. So I think Enos Rakestraw is a breakout player this year for Detroit. Let's go to make or break player for the Lions. Who do you have for that?
I've got one is whoever ends up being the center, because they've lost a good center. So I think that's going to be it's kind of a position. We've got Terrion Arnold at cornerback, someone that needs to step up there. And on the defensive line, Josh Pascal. They need people to show up there, I think, on the defense. So I've got Arnold and Pascal, and then the center position, which I'll talk about that on the battles in a little bit, because, I think the deal there is going to be the positioning on the offensive line.
Yep. Yeah, we'll definitely revisit that in just a second. I also had Josh Pascal as my make or break player. He was in 2022. He was a second-round pick. Last season, in his rookie year, he had 21 tackles and 2 sacks in 14 games. In 2023, he had 25 tackles and 1 sack in 12 games. And then last year, he had last year was 21 tackles. In his rookie season, he had 16 tackles and 2 sacks in 10 games. So he's just kind of hovered in that spot that hasn't been, super effective. Now he is the backup technically as Aiden Hutchinson, although he got hurt last year, and then Marcus Davenport as well there at the defensive end position. But to me, Pascal, he's too good to be this lack of impact on this team right now. And so I really think he needs to make a big step forward this year as far as, creating a spot for him on this team or even in free agency to give him better opportunities. He needs to show out this year. So he's my make or break player as well. All right, Dad, depth chart battles. We're thinking the same way on this one. It's center. It's the most important thing going on in Detroit right now outside of the coaching staff. They draft Tate Ratledge in the second round out of Georgia. They bring in Tristan Colon from Arizona Cardinals in free agency. They've got maybe a Graham Glasgow that could slide into center as well. My guess is he stays. He'll hold down the guard spot is my guess. He's a little older. And Ratledge has some center experience. He can plays guard, of course, as well. I think it ends up being Ratledge as the winner of this position. But they've got to secure what's going on the front line. They've got to keep Jared Goff upright, and they've got to give Montgomery and Gibbs lanes to run through. So the center position is no doubt the biggest depth chart battle going on for Detroit this offseason.
Yeah, that's what I have there. They also need the second edge rusher to complement Hutchinson if he's back healthy there. And, they do need to settle on a backup quarterback. Of course, we like the guy from Tennessee and think he has a good chance. But again, at this point, their starting quarterback has stayed pretty durable, but you need to have a backup. And I think who comes out as the established number 2 will be interesting there in Detroit.
Yeah, if Hooker doesn't beat out Kyle Allen, he's probably a QB3 for the rest of his life. So hopefully he wins out that job. Detroit last year, obviously the last couple years, been very, very good. The win total for this year is 10.5. Dad, how do you feel about Detroit's season upcoming this year?
Well, I have them at 10 wins, so I'd be just under 10.5, but 10.5 is real good. I think I have their ceiling at 12. I have their floor at 9. Yeah. So, they could do real, real well again. like I said, it's the change in coaching, and they've changed some personnel. How quick will Hutchinson be back to what his form was? Because he's a real difference maker, but I don't know that it'll be that way the first few games of the year. So, we'll see how Detroit goes.
Yeah, I've got the same as you, Dad. Nine is my floor, 12 is my ceiling. I think the talent is still there. The talent has not left. And so we're going to, if it goes sour this year, then defensive coordinator losing his job, offensive coordinator losing his job, maybe head coach losing his job. Like they've got the same talent with the exception of, maybe a piece, but they've got to show up this year and continue what they've been doing the last couple of years. And the schedule says that they should. So we'll see. We'll see at the end of the day where it shakes out. Let's go to Green Bay next, Dad. And we and you will be up in Green Bay in just a couple weeks for the owners' meeting. And we'll break down all the inside scoop as soon as we get back from that as well. But, Dad, we could talk for hours about Green Bay. Let's try to keep it somewhat contained. But the breakout player, I have a feeling I know where you're going with this, but let's see. Breakout player for Green Bay.
I think the guy that we're expecting and the guy that should be is Edgerrin Cooper, the linebacker. He can make a real difference on defense if he continues to develop and be consistent. Devontae Wyatt on the defensive line showed a lot of progress last year, and I think he can make a difference. A guy that a lot of people that aren't Packer fans won't know because he was hurt last year was Marshawn Lloyd. He brings some interesting things to the backup running back position, and they can use him in a lot of ways. And I think at cornerback, Carnell Valentine, has played a lot in his first 2 years, and I think he could fill a position better than people maybe are expecting.
Well, you didn't mention the guy I thought you were gonna focus in on. I'm surprised by that. So I went with somebody else because I thought you were gonna go with Tucker Kraft at tight end because you've talked about that in previous conversations we've had. So you got half the team listed, but still not Tucker Kraft. I'm surprised by that one. Tucker Kraft will have a great year this year in Green Bay. I'm going to go with Jayden Reed, though. As a rookie, he led the team with 55 catches, 857 yards, and 6 touchdowns. They've got all these pass catchers. They've got all this offensive talent, but I really feel like someone has to emerge as the guy when it comes to the pass game. And I think Jayden Reed is that guy. If he led the team as a rookie, I'd like to think that his numbers go up as a sophomore this year. And having some guys like Matthew Golden, the rookie, that can kind of take the top off the defense, I think opens the door for more opportunity even for Jayden Reed. So I think we're looking at about 80 catches, over the 1,000-yard mark this year, and maybe 6 to 8 touchdowns as well. I think Jayden Reed's due for a breakout season in Green Bay. Make or break player, and let's see. Are you going to name the other half of the roster, Dad? Or are we going to focus in? I got to think we're on the same page with make or break player. Who's your make or break player?
Well, the obvious guy is Lucas Van Ness.
Yes, thank you.
He first-round draft choice, and I think he will do well. But a lot of pressure there. They need him. They can use him in a lot of different spots on the defensive line. I've heard talk about that this week. So you have him. People are expecting good things out of Quay Walker, but I think this is a year he's in a contract year. I think it's a little bit of a make or break for him. And in some ways, Luke Musgrave. Expect great things out of him. But again, coming back, Tucker Kraft's the number one guy, no doubt about that at tight end. I think Musgrave will do well, but he can help himself a lot.
Quay Walker was one I considered in this as well. I don't know. I mean, I'm intrigued to see what they do with him after this season. I don't know that he could do anything to be long-term in Green Bay, honestly, just financially speaking and things like that. But he could have definitely been that choice. But Lucas Van Ness is the make or break player. First-round pick in 23. And his rookie season, 32 tackles and 4 sacks. Last season, 33 tackles and 3 sacks. You cannot be drafted in the first round as an edge rusher and only have 7 sacks over 2 seasons. It's just not going to work. Rashawn Gary on the other side creates all this attention. So they're focusing in on Rashawn Gary. You've got to make the most on the other side, and Van Ness has yet to do that. And this really, I think, is his final season to prove that he can. They went out and drafted Baron Sorrell in the 4th round. They've got Kingsley and Enagbare, who's done well as a 5th-round pick in 2022. They've got a few other rookies. We don't expect a whole lot out of them, but a 5th-round pick, Colin Oliver, and then Brenton Cox Jr., who had some flash moments last year too. So there will be a short leash, I think, on Van Ness. And if they're talking about moving him around, that just worries me even more that he's not doing what he needs to be doing in the position he was drafted to play. So to me, Van Ness is the answer for Green Bay's that make or break player this season, although I think Quay Walker is very close because he also was a 1st-round pick in 2022 and very important for him as well. And I think you could probably throw out Keeson Nixon, the cornerback as well, who talked a lot after the season about his role on the team and things like that. Now he's going to come back and he needs to be elite out there at cornerback, but we'll see about that. Depth chart battles. I'll start with cornerback. Caleb King, Carrington Valentine are guys that are going to be fighting for playing time. Nixon and Hobbs are pretty much, I believe, locked in the starting roles. You've got Bullard, who will probably be playing that nickel back. And so Valentine and King will be the people. It seems like a lot of people think highly of Caleb King, but he was a 7th-round draft pick. So was Carrington Valentine. So 2 former 7th-round draft picks that have both played, Valentine more so than King. And I think that's an interesting one to watch, who gets the most opportunity there. And then, of course, the offensive line, Dad, Rasheed Walker, Anthony Belton, Jordan Morgan, and Sean Ryan, 4 guys fighting for 2 roster spots or 2 starting roles at least on the offensive line. You've got at left tackle Rasheed Walker, the incumbent, but you got the rookie Belton and last year's 1st-round pick Jordan Morgan. And then at guard, you've got Sean Ryan, who's penciled in as the starter, but Belton and Morgan could compete for that job as well. So I think those are the main things to watch as far as depth chart battles for Green Bay this year.
Yes, the offensive line, I think that's true. The running back, to come up with a 2nd and 3rd running backs are going to be real interesting because they had 2 guys that played real well last year, and now you've got Lloyd in. So it'll be interesting to see on the running backs. And you mentioned Bullard. I'm interested in what they do with Bullard and Williams because they're both very talented and they both want to get them on the field. Yeah. But because Williams has a good knack and plays back there well, with X. But Bullard's awfully good too. So it'll be interesting to see where they fit in and how they use them. Sure. Whether it's in packages, because again, you talk about Bullard can play the slot, but Hobbs can play the slot. There's different things there they can do. So interesting to see. Hafley will probably switch it up a lot, and we'll just see how that goes.
I just think that Bullard and Hobbs is better than Valentine and Hobbs or better than King and Hobbs. Like, I think Bullard has to be on the field. Evan Williams played well at safety last year as well. So that's why I think you're looking at Hobbs, Williams, McKinney, Nixon, and Bullard as your 5 main guys on the field. And then Valentine and King will be the guys that come in and fill those spots, or 4th cornerback, whatever it may be from there. All right, let's get to the win total. Green Bay win total this year is 9.5. Where do you sit with the Packers this year?
Yeah, I'm over 9.5. I think they'll do better than that. I think they're going to, come out and be ready to play. So again, I'm be a little prejudiced on that, but yeah, I'd definitely be over 9.5. I have their ceiling at 13 and their floor at 10.
Yeah, I'm the same with you on this one too. Just like the Lions were identical. 10 is the floor, 13 is the ceiling. So I've got them over 9.5. Also, again, you look at the roster. Yes, they're young, but they're fairly experienced. We believe in Jordan Love. I think he's going to have a really good year this year. We like the depth that overall is there. There's a few question marks for sure. I think, again, they got to get to the quarterback. Rashawn Gary needs to have another great season. Last year was down a little bit. Kenny Clark needs to step up again. That defensive line needs to be dominant. But I love what they did with Edgerrin Cooper last year, their second-round pick at linebacker. He's been really, really good. I like what they've done in the offseason, generally speaking. Surprised with the draft, taking Matthew Golden in the first round, and then they also brought in Savion Williams in the third round. So that gives time for Christian Watson to get healthy, and they've got Romeo Doubs return. Like, they've got the best pass-catching options as a whole in the NFL. None of their guys are better than some of the ones out there. They're not better than Chase. They're not better than Justin Jefferson. They're not better than CeeDee Lamb. None of those things. In and of themselves, they're not better than everyone else in the league. But as a group, that's the most depth of any single team out there right now when it comes to pass catchers. So that should help them, because if injuries do creep up, as long as it's not the Jordan Love, they should be able to sustain and have a decent season and compete there for the NFC North once again. So I'm with you 100% on that one. All right, let's go to the Minnesota Vikings. One time a daunting defense, now just, a defense. I am so down on Minnesota this year. I couldn't be any further down than I am on them this season. But let's run through some players, and then we'll get to all of that, I suppose. Let's start with breakout player, Dad. This was, in the 3 divisions we've done so far, this was the hardest one for me to come up with, a breakout player for Minnesota. So who is your breakout player for the Vikings?
Well, they're both on defense. One is a cornerback, Isaiah Rodgers. Mike has the potential there, and Dallas Turner as far as an edge rusher. So,
all right, so that's fine. Yeah, that's probably good. I ended up going with a different cornerback. I went with Jeff Okudah, who comes over from Houston, who was previously with Detroit. Let me give you some numbers with him. He was also with Atlanta for a year. So 3 years with Detroit. He played 9 games, 1 game, and 15 games in his 3 seasons. He only had 2 interceptions. His best year was in 2022, where he had 73 tackles and 1 interception, 7 passes deflected. In his 1 year in Atlanta, he played 13 games. He had 44 tackles, 3 passes deflected. And last year with Houston, only 6 games, 9 tackles, and 1 interception. This is just a guy that has talent, and for whatever reason, it has not clicked anywhere yet. So will it click in Minnesota? Probably not, but I'm still putting him there. He's opposite of Isaiah Rodgers, who comes in from Philadelphia that you mentioned. So he's got a good pairing there. Safeties are decent in Minnesota, at least that free safety. The other cornerback's good, Byron Murphy from Arizona, that came over last season. So, that the defensive backs are solid overall, which I think gives Jeff Okudah an opportunity for a breakout season. That's why I went with him. I like your pick of Dallas Turner, Dad, first-round pick in 24. He's probably still going to be able to play kind of a role position this year in Minnesota, with Van Ginkel and Jonathan Greenard there as well. So, that I think there's definitely opportunity. He needs to play better and show out again this year too. So I like that one as well. All right, let's go make or break player. Who do you have as the make or break player for Minnesota?
Well, I have Jalen Naylor, a wide receiver, as far as fighting for the 3rd spot there, and I have Okudah, who you just talked about, as a make or break player. He needs to step up and be good if he's going to stay around.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a make or break player and you're a receiver, you're doomed in this Minnesota offense. And my make or break player is J.J. McCarthy. I know he hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet. I know it's his first season. You say, well, just one season, he's allowed to have a bad season. Nope, that's not the way it works these days. J.J. McCarthy now, they got rid of a quarterback that won them 14 games. They got rid of a quarterback that threw for over 4,300 yards. They got rid of a quarterback who threw for 35 touchdowns, all because of J.J. McCarthy. They believe in J.J. McCarthy. So this is a make-or-break season for J.J. McCarthy, and I think he's going to break. I don't think it's going to work. And as good as Justin Jefferson is, as pretty good as Jordan Addison is, I just don't think this is going to be a good year for Minnesota because I don't believe in JJ McCarthy. And if he comes out and he throws for 2,500 yards and he throws, 50-50 on touchdowns to interception ratio, where he's sitting there at maybe, let's call it 20 touchdowns, and he won't throw 20 picks. So 12 picks or 16 picks or something like that. Like, they'll move on from him immediately. They won't wait around on JJ McCarthy. This is his one shot to prove that it doesn't have to be perfect, but he has to be very good, or they're going to move on from him very quickly, because the quarterback class coming in next year is loaded, and it's loaded again the year after that too. So for me, it's all on JJ McCarthy right now because of what Sam Darnold did last year, and I just don't see him matching or even coming close to matching this. And I will take the full lap if I'm wrong on this. If I'm wrong on JJ McCarthy, I promise I'll spend the whole episode talking about how I was wrong on JJ McCarthy and he proved me wrong. But I'm telling you, Minnesota Vikings fans, if you were watching, I'm telling you, you made a massive mistake in running Sam Darnold out, not re-signing him, and deciding that he was not the guy for you guys because of his playoff performance. You are going to miss the Sam Darnold era very quickly in Minnesota, and you will be begging for a 14-win season here in the very near future, because I really don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to give it to you. So that's my make-or-break player, Dad. Depth chart battles in Minnesota. I go right back to who you mentioned as a make-or-break player in Jalen Naylor. He'll be competing with Rondale Moore and Ty Felton for snaps and opportunities. Probably more so with Rondale Moore than Ty Felton, the rookie. But I think Rondale Moore, we'll see what he does. He's kind of an important for his career as well. And didn't really perform as we thought he could as coming out of the draft. Then he gets moved to Atlanta. That didn't really do anything either. Now he's in Minnesota. And so I've got that kind of as my depth chart battle in Minnesota between Naylor, Felton, and Rondale Moore. And then you mentioned Dallas Turner. How often is he going to be on the field? Jonathan Greenard is probably a guy that he could beat, you'd like to think. And Van Ginkel, though, I think he's pretty locked in. So watch for that edge rusher position as well when it comes to depth chart.
Yeah, I think the backup running back is something they're going to have to, want to have shored up. So I think that'll be a battle. I think cornerback, we've talked about that. And interior of the defensive line. From what I understand, there's a lot of flux there, exactly who's going to, fill those positions. And like you said, Minnesota used to have a dominant defense, so that may be important. But again, there'd be battles there, interior defensive line.
Yeah, I mean, they got Harrison Phillips there. They brought in last season from Buffalo. I'd be shocked if he doesn't win out that job. They've got veterans on the D-line now. Jonathan Allen comes in from Washington. Javon Hargrave comes in from San Francisco as a whole, too. Running back's interesting, Dad, because I don't know how they're going to split carries. I know Aaron Jones re-signed in Minnesota, but they bring in Jordan Mason from San Francisco. They got Ty Chandler, who played well last year. I mean, I don't know that Aaron Jones is going to get the majority of carries. You talk about the backup running back job. Honestly, I think you're just look at the entire running back position and see how that one shakes out. Could be intriguing to watch as well from there also. All right, win total in Minnesota is 8.5 this season for the Vikings. How you feeling about 8.5 in Minnesota?
Yeah, I'm under that. Again, I wanted to be more positive than you were about Minnesota, but when I looked at their schedule, a little hard to do that. So I have 7 wins. I have their ceiling at 9 and their floor at 5. So,
okay, so I've got their ceiling at 8. So I'm under 8.5 also. I got their floor at 4. So 4 to 8 wins is where I see them at. And listen, when it comes to like Packer bias and stuff like that, I don't care about the Vikings. I really don't. And so it's not being biased. I really don't trust or believe in JJ McCarthy. And that's where it all comes down to it for me. And I just don't see it. I just don't see it at all. So let's talk about the division then, Dad, and how we think it's going to break down at the end of the year as far as who wins the division. And then from there, let's take a look at kind of how it breaks down first through fourth in the division. So how do you have the division breaking down?
Well, I have the Packers winning the division. Again, I think they're going to get back to the head of the North. I think them and Detroit are the two teams that should be battling for the division. So I would have Detroit second. Then it's kind of a toss-up between Chicago and Minnesota. Who's third and who's fourth, and I don't think either one. I think both will have trouble making the playoffs. So I think I would go with Minnesota than Chicago, but they'll be real close.
So for me, it's not a toss-up at all. At the end of the division, I think Minnesota's last. I've been saying Chicago's the third place team now for a while, since the draft, I guess, probably. So I've got Minnesota last, Chicago third, and Dad, this might be biased, but I'm going Green Bay as well at 1, Detroit at 2. It would not surprise me if Detroit wins again, but it scares me to death that they lost both coordinators. And it's who I believed in with Detroit was those coordinators. And with both of them being gone, Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson, that's where I kind of feel like Detroit takes a step back. They're still going to be good. They still have the same talent, but there's going to be some games that maybe they won the last couple of years that they'll lose this year. So I've got Green Bay 1 and Detroit 2. I think you're looking at about 10 or 11 wins for both teams probably. So a really close one where that schedule is going to come down to maybe even how the series goes between Green Bay and Detroit. And I've got them split. I've got Detroit winning in Detroit. I've got Green Bay winning in Green Bay in that series. And then Chicago, I think Chicago's sniffing a wild card. I don't know if they get there this year, but I think they're sniffing it this year. And I think Minnesota's, we haven't done all the other, I haven't looked at every team yet. We've only previewed 3 divisions, but I think Minnesota could be a top 5 draft pick next season. And so I think it's going to be really, really bad year for Minnesota. So that's how I see it. That's how I see it breaking down at the very least. All right, Dad. Anything else NFC North related you want to discuss?
Yeah, I just want to, I want to pump the brakes a little bit on this Ben Johnson thing because I hear that a lot, and I know, the Bear fans are everything is, rosy because of that. It's funny. I've heard them say, Chicago wins the offseason every year. Who had the best offseason? It's always Chicago, and that hasn't proved out. Ben Johnson's gonna, he was a great offensive coordinator. If he is the offensive coordinator at Chicago, I think then the team is going to suffer. I think Chicago, we all know they've had trouble in the locker room. They've had trouble in the organization. And I even saw this when Matt LaFleur took over Green Bay. Quite the play caller, but he really had to grow in some areas as far as being the head coach and keeping control of the whole team. And I think Johnson, again, if everything is about him and the offense, I think, there's going to be issues. There's still old players at Chicago, and there's still issues that need to be taken care of. And from there, again, I think, like you said, 8, 9 wins. But, a lot of Bear fans, I think, are a lot more positive than that. So I checked up on Ben Johnson a little bit. His first year as offensive coordinator at Detroit, and he had been to Detroit 3 years earlier. So he was familiar with the players, and his first season, they went 9-8. Again, if Chicago goes 9-8, then I think that'll be good. But to think this is going to turn around immediately, I don't know. And he's a great offensive coordinator. So I started looking a little bit about offensive coordinators and head coaches, and that can go either way. He can be like Matt LaFleur, and he can be like Kevin O'Connell, or he can be like Josh McDaniel and Marty Morningweg and Norv Turner and Cam Cameron, and the list goes on of guys who were really good offensive minds, but did not make it into head coaching. Chicago's a tough spot. It really is as far as being head coach is concerned. So we will see. He may be great. Again, from being a Packer fan, I mean, the rivalry's never been bigger. You got the coach. Ben Johnson came in. The first thing he did was went after the Packers. He's not the first coach that's ever done that. Lovie Smith did, and Lovie Smith had some success. But he had been a head coach before also. We will see from there. But we'll see how the Bears do. They have potential. The quarterback has got to rise to the occasion because he's supposed to be the guy. He had a tough year last year. He's going to have to get protection. Chicago's got an interesting schedule. Their first 2 games are division games. That means a lot. And their last 6 games are against Detroit, Philadelphia, and Green Bay twice. So the schedule, it'll be interesting from there. So just wanted to throw that out about the Bears and Ben Johnson.
Yeah, but I mean, they were a 5-win team last year. So if they win 8 games, that's remarkable improvement. They don't have to be playoff team this year to be good. And, we talked about Caleb Williams struggling last year. Well, he still threw for over 3,500 yards. He had 20 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So if you assume that the offense is going to be suited for his success, he can throw 3,500 yards again, and it'll still be a good year for him, especially if he can up those touchdown numbers. And they've done a lot to help him out with putting the weapons around him. And we saw Cincinnati go that route a few years ago when they chose to go with Jamar Chase over Penei Sewell and say, hey, let's give weapons to our quarterback and let that help out. The offensive line still stinks in Cincinnati, but Jamar Chase is amazing. The offense is still good. So in Chicago, it's similar to Cincinnati. Like, will the offensive line be good enough for Caleb Williams to succeed? The offense should be. The offense play calling should be. Sure, there's a learning curve, but if you tell me Ben Johnson is like Josh McDaniels, I would bet against that every day of the week. Josh McDaniels, everything about his personality is different than Ben Johnson's personality. And Ben Johnson had a whole year to prepare for this. Last year, he was one of the leading candidates out there, and he said, no, I'm going to go back to Detroit. I've got something to complete there. He didn't complete it. He didn't finish it, but his offense had a great season. So for a whole season, Ben Johnson knew I'm going to be a head coach next year. And so I believe he had the time to prepare for it and be ready for it. Is this the best fit for him? I don't know. I would have liked to have seen him go to maybe Indianapolis, but you got the young quarterback here. You've got a lot of weapons around you, and his offense is not really built around flash. It's really built more around doing your job. And we'll see if Ben Johnson can succeed with that in Chicago. So I don't think they're winning the division. I don't think they're winning the Super Bowl. And I wouldn't even bet that they're going to make the playoffs. But I think if they get to 8 wins, I think that is a marketable improvement for them. And I think it'll at least show everyone they're on the right path in that case as well. So again, I go back. I think Vrabel was the best hire of the offseason in New England. I think Ben Johnson was the second best hire right behind him there in Chicago as well. So, he's never been a head coach before, but I still think he's got what it takes. So we'll see. I could be wrong on that one too, and I would be okay if I'm wrong on that one, of course, as well. So I'm all for that. All for that for sure. All right. Anything else you want to discuss, non-NFC North related, or anything else that we need to cover?
No, I think we're good. So, we'll be back next week and keep looking on.
Now, the one thing that you did not do in this episode, Dad, is you had an opportunity to shout out another Middle Tennessee State University player, and you chose not to do that. I didn't know if that was on purpose or not, but Kevin Byard, the Chicago Bears safety, as an MTSU grad, and I thought we were going to get another shout out, but didn't come. So I thought maybe your Bears hatred played into your refusal to acknowledge Kevin Byard.
Well, I almost put Baird as a make or break player because he has moved around to different teams. So I did think about him from there. But yeah, a great MTSU player. I think he went into the Blue Raider Hall of Fame this year there in Murfreesboro, and really has been a good citizen, in the community and a good representative there. So you always wonder why good citizens end up in Chicago, but it does happen. So
why do bad things happen to good people? A question we're always asking for sure.
That's it.
While we're on the topic of Murfreesboro, shout out to the Slick Pig celebrating 30 years in the business this week down there in Murfreesboro. If you're ever in the borough, go check out the Slick Pig and say hey to Jerry. The best smoked wings of your life there at the Slick Pig. So that's fun stuff as well. Dad, we're inching closer. I mean, college football, the recruiting trail has been hot. Tennessee has been just raking in the players this week as well. But that's getting closer. The NFL is getting closer. We have an NFL game this month. At the close of the month, we got the Hall of Fame game. So we're getting close. Next week, we are covering the AFC South. And last week, we covered the AFC West. 2 weeks ago, we were in the NFC East. So if you missed those episodes, go check them out. Tune in next week for the AFC South preview as well. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got some Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson conversation to be had, and a lot going on. Jacksonville. There's a lot happening in the AFC South. Tennessee, all that good stuff. So tune in next week for that. You can follow us on social media at Sports Stove. That's Twitter and Instagram. And you can always find past episodes on the Belly Up Sports YouTube channel or the Sports Stove Football Show podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you check out Righteous Felon Jerky at righteousfelon.com. The promo code is STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. And if you've yet to purchase any jerky from Righteous Felon, I don't know what you're waiting on. Get to it and check out the bootleg and barbecue. You will love it. All right, Dad, I think we're ready to sign off. Anything else?
No, next week we're on Friday night, you said, right?
Yes, that's correct. Next week's show will be Friday night, special day and time. Friday night, 8 o'clock Eastern time next week. So be ready for that. We'll put that out on the social media world as well. We sure appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Sports Stove Football Show. I sure hope we pronounced all the names correct so those little rascals in Alabama don't make fun of us anymore. But thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.